Hey everyone, today we are taking a look at the newest expansion for Marvel's legendary deck building game, and that's Paint the Town Red, or as most people call it, the Spider-Man expansion. Now this is one of the small expansions for the game. It has 5 new heroes, and they're all Spider-Man related in some way. There's a couple new versions of Spider-Man, there's some of his friends, there's 2 new Masterminds, Carnage and Mysterio, 2 new villain groups, the Sinister Six and Maximum Carnage, which are all of Carnage's buddies, new schemes, just a lot of stuff that all has to do with Spider-Man in some way, shape, or form. Does this hold up to the previous expansions of Legendary or the Legendary core game? You already know I love Legendary and other expansions, so let's go ahead and take a look, and I'll let you know if this one holds up to the hype. Paint the Town Red is the newest small expansion for Marvel Legendary deck building game, and everything in this set is themed around Spider-Man in some way, shape, or form. Either it's an alternate version of Spider-Man, or Spider-Man's friends, or the supervillains that Spider-Man typically fights, but everything involves Spider-Man. And I'm not going to go over all the rules of Legendary. You can watch my original review of the base game for that, but I'm just going to show you some of the new cards that come in the game. So first off, starting with the heroes, we have Symbiote Spider-Man, which is kind of like an alternate version of Spider-Man with the black costume on. We have Dark Strength, which has the new, most of the cards that the heroes have this new wall crawl ability. Whenever a card says wall crawl, if you recruit it from the HQ, from your starting lineup of cards, you spend the recruit points and you buy it, you get to put it right on top of your deck if you want to, which means you're going to have access to it really, really quickly, especially if you combo it with cards in the same turn that let you draw cards. So Dark Strength lets you do the wall crawl ability. It gives you 1 combat strength and costs 2, and you can reveal the top card of your deck. If it costs 1 or 2, you get +2 combat. So again, right there, you can actually combo this with if another card that had wall crawl that you purchased this turn goes on top and you know that it's 1 or 2, then that's going to work out really, really well for you. Shadowed Spider also has wall crawl. You get 1 combat for each other hero you played this turn that costs 1 or 2, so you're noticing a theme here. Spider Sense Tingling, reveal the top 2 cards of your deck, put any that cost 2 or less into your hand, put the rest back in any order. And Thwip, it gives you 4 combat. This is his ultimate card, which is probably the cheapest ultimate card I've ever seen, for only 2. It gives you 4 combat, but in order to play it, you must put 2 cards from your hand on top of your deck. But if you have card draw stuff, then that's really not going to be such a big deal for you. Next, we have the Scarlet Spider, who's one of those dumb clone Spider-Man. Sorry, that was just a totally dumb saga, and his costume looks stupid too. But anyways, now he has a wall crawl ability for his first card to get you a recruit point. If you've already played one of the Spider Friend cards, you get to draw a card. Perfect Hunter, wall crawl, you get to draw a card, it gives you 1 combat. Leap from Above, wall crawl, if you've played one of these little brainwave symbol heroes, you get +2 combat in addition to the 3. And his ultimate card, which combos really well in this set, 5 combat. Whenever you put a card on top of your deck this turn, you may draw that card. And the way we interpreted that rule is that any time you would put a card back on top of your deck, you get to draw it. So there are a lot of cards in this game that do that in some way, shape, or form. So that's a great card to have. Next, we have Moon Knight, who I'm not really sure how associated he is with Spider-Man, but whatever, we'll go with it. He gives you 2 recruit. He also has wall crawl for some godforsaken reason. If you play a brainwave hero, you get another recruit. Wall crawl, 2 combat. Whenever you defeat a villain on the rooftops this turn, you may KO one of your cards or a card from your discard pile. 3 combat, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a brainwave or whatever symbol that is, draw it. I still don't know the name of these symbols. And then finally, the ultimate card for him, 6 combat. Whenever you defeat a villain on the rooftops this turn, rescue bystanders equals to that villain's printed victory point value. If you've played one of those symbols of characters this turn, you may move a villain to the rooftops. If another villain is already there, swap them. So you see Moon Knight's cards are keyed into 2 particular types of symbols, and they have to do with the rooftops a lot of the time when you're defeating villains there. Spider-Woman, who also doesn't actually have that much to do with Spider-Man, believe it or not, gives you 3 recruit, but much like the Ultimate Symbiote Spider card, when you play this card, you have to put a card from your hand on top of your deck. Wall Crawl, reveal the top card of your deck. If that card has a combat icon, you get to draw it, and it gives you 2 combat. Venom Blast, Wall Crawl, reveal the top card of your deck. If that card has a recruit icon, you get to draw it, and it gives you 3 combat. And her ultimate card is Arachno Pheromones, which is as strange as it sounds. Recruit a hero from the HQ for free. If you've played a Spider Friend, you get to put that hero on top of your deck. And then finally, we have Black Cats, who Has a lot of cheap cards, well, at least a few cheap cards. Wall Crawl, 0 combat, but you reveal the top card of any player's deck. You get the combat value equal to that card's printed recruit plus its printed combat value. Casual Bank Robbery, 2 recruit, you get another recruit, usable only to recruit the hero in the headquarters space under the bank, and it's got Wall Crawl. 3 combat, and each player reveals the top card of their deck. Choose any number of those cards to be discarded. I don't know why that you would ever consider that's useful to you. And 5 combat, and each other player reveals a Sonic, I think, hero, or chooses a bystander from their victory pile. You rescue those bystanders. If you played a Spider Friend, you get +1 combat for each bystander you rescued this turn. So that's all of the heroes. As you can tell, they're all themed around certain things like the Wall Crawl ability. So let's talk about the Masterminds, which is what a lot of people love about this game. First, you have Carnage. And Carnage, along with many of the, or all of the villains in his villain group, Maximum Carnage, have a special ability called Feast. Whenever a Master Strike is drawn for him, and you see he always leads Maximum Carnage, you get to feast on each player. Whenever the Master Strike feasts on a player's 0-cost hero, your starting heroes, that player gains a wound. What does Feast mean? That means that whoever that actually applies to, whether it's the main player or every player, has to immediately KO, permanently destroy the top card off of their deck and hope it's not something really good. His tactic cards, they all say Feast. Even one that says Fight actually may require you to feast. So if Carnage feasts on a 0-cost hero this way, each other player KOs a bystander from their victory pile. Fight, each player reveals the top card of their deck, then Carnage feasts on the player of your choice. Feast, you get Recruit equal to the cost of the card that Carnage feasts on. That's hard to say. And Feast, if Carnage feasts on a 0-cost hero this way, repeat this process, which could be really, really bad. Mysterio is very interesting because, well, he always leads a Sinister Six, and as a Master Strike, you can shuffle this Master Strike into Mysterio's face-down Mastermind Tactics. It's a Mastermind Tactic worth 6 victory points. So you may think that you have him on the ropes, but every time a Master Card Tactic comes out, you have to fight it like it's one of the other tactic cards. And even though he's only an 8, that can get very, very frustrating. Tactic cards, you get +1 recruit for each Mastermind Tactic Mysterio has left after this one. Rescue a bystander for each Mastermind Tactic Mysterio has left after this one. If this is not the final tactic, shuffle a Master Strike tactic from each other player's victory pile back into Mysterio's Mastermind Tactics. That's kind of ridiculous. And if this is not the final tactic, reveal the top 5 cards of the villain deck. Play all the Master Strikes you revealed, put the rest on the bottom of that deck in random order. So he may seem like he goes down easy, but which is sounds kind of dirty, but he just gets progressively more annoying as you go through the game. And finally, the villain groups. We have the Sinister Six, who Mysterio always leads. You have Sandman. Sandman's combat is twice the number of villains in the city, and his escape is that each player reveals a brainwave or whatever hero or gains a wound. Kraven is super annoying. Kraven's combat is equal to the highest cost hero in the HQ, and if he escapes, you have to KO an extra hero upwards and above of the one you normally KO for an escaping villain. Shocker, as an ambush, you have to reveal a brainwave hero or discard a card. Chameleon, fight. Copy the effects of a hero in the HQ space under Chameleon, including its recruit and combat. And Hobgoblin, ambush. Each Sinister Six villain captures a bystander. And then we have Maximum Carnage. And like I said, every one of these has Feast in some way, shape, or form. Shriek, feast. When Shriek feasts on a 0-cost hero, each other player gains a wound. Escape, each player gains a wound. Carrion, whenever Carrion feasts on a hero that costs 1 or more, put Carrion back in the city space where he came from. Doppelganger's combat is equal to the cost of the hero in the HQ space under him. And Demogoblin, ambush. Demogoblin captures a bystander and then he feasts. And finally, we'll take a look at the schemes. So these are all a little bit different, but we have Web of Lies, 7 twists. Whenever you defeat a villain, you may pay a recruitment. If you do, you get to rescue a bystander. And you can't fight the Mastermind unless you personally have a number of bystanders equal to how many twists are stacked up next to the Mastermind. If 7 twists come out, evil wins. Invade the Daily Bugle News headquarters. 8 twists, 6 extra henchmen from a single henchman group to the hero deck. You can't fight villains in the headquarters. KO a hero from the headquarters, put the highest combat villain from the city into that headquarters space. When there are 5 villains in the headquarters, evil wins. The Clone Saga, 8 twists. Each player reveals 2 non-gray heroes with the same card name or discards down to 3 cards. When 2 villains with the same card name have escaped or the villain deck runs out, evil wins. And finally, splice humans with spider DNA. That sounds fantastic, actually. 8 twists includes Sinister Six as one of the villain groups. Sinister Six villains get 3 combat, All hero cards have Wall Crawl. Each player puts a Sinister 6 villain from their victory pile on top of the villain deck. No matter how many players did so, play a single card from the villain deck. Evil wins when 6 Sinister 6 villains have escaped or the villain deck runs out. So there's some new variety there, but nothing too drastic. There's all the different types of heroes, lots of Spider-Man themed stuff, and lots of nasty feasting going on. But let's go back to my final opinion, and I'll tell you what I think of all this.
Well, this is going to be an easy one for me because really, in order to make me happy, all that Upper Deck would have had to do is just include more in this expansion. More heroes, more villains, more masterminds, more schemes. That's pretty much the way the Legendary is structured. As long as you have more and more variety, the game just sort of sustains itself. And so this expansion definitely succeeds in that regard, but I'm going to give it extra points for the fact that it actually adds some very interesting new mechanics and thematic elements. And I would actually say that while Dark City is definitely the first expansion you should be buying for this game, I mean, it's a huge mega expansion, so that makes obvious sense. Of the two small ones, this Paint the Town Red and the Fantastic Four, I think this one's better. A lot of it has to do with the fact that I'm more inclined to like the Spider-Man corner of the Marvel Universe. I'm not really keen on the Fantastic Four. But also, I just think the elements of this expansion, the sort of new mechanical themes, are just better. And it's more accessible in that regard, if that makes sense. Not to say that the Fantastic Four expansion is not good, but I think this might be, if you're still new to the game, this would probably be a better purchase for you. So let's go through some of those things. First, we've got, in my mind, the two key things here are the Masterminds, because the Masterminds are the things that you don't have as many of as the others. You have tons of heroes to choose from already if you've been picking up with the game, even in the core set, but not a lot of Masterminds, and it sort of defines how you're going to play the game. That is the challenge that you have to overcome. And I think that the two Masterminds here are not nearly as difficult as some that were introduced in the previous couple of expansions. They're just more annoying than anything else. And actually, I would say that Carnage is pretty easy. I mean, he has the new Feast ability. That's one of the new elements of this game, is Feast, which is it's a thing that actually all of the villains in his group, Maximum Carnage, have as well. And that's that when you feast, you, as I described in my overview, he eats one of the characters off your top of your deck. Well, that's usually a good thing, especially early in the game, and even late in the game, it's not a huge deal. And his power is just not that great. It's only a 9 power, so he's an easy villain. That's not a bad thing, because I've lost a lot of games of Legendary since Dark City came out, and it doesn't make the game much fun for new. I'm always playing this game with new people, so it's nice to have some villains that are interesting, but are also, you're able to kill them without having too much of a headache. Mysterio is also not that tough, but the game is much longer with Mysterio because there's a cool thematic element with him. First off, I think Mysterio is kind of lame. It's not the only sort of questionable choice of I mean, lame as far as the character itself. I mean, it's not the only questionable choice in this set, along with Scarlet Spider. I don't know, but as far as the game mechanics, it's very interesting and thematic. Mysterio's whole superpower is that he can manipulate people's minds, like through sort of like, I don't know, hypno gas or something. And how that works in the game is that, as I described, every time that you a Master Strike is drawn, it becomes another tactic that you have to worry about. And he also has a couple of his normal tactics cards which say, if this isn't the last one, something bad happens. Either you shuffle it back in or another negative effect happens for the other one. I can't remember off the top of my head. But that is kind of cool. I mean, it's frustrating because it just prolongs the game, but it does make sense with the character. So it's a nice change of pace from the other types of Masterminds. So I like what they did there. I've played a few of the schemes, and they're honestly nothing that special. I was kind of disappointed, but then again, another one of those things that I've never really defined the game by the schemes. The schemes are just sort of there, and they just sort of set the gauge of the challenge. So nothing really to comment there. I felt the same way with the Fantastic Four schemes. Now let's get to the heroes. The coolest thing about these are the wall crawl ability. It doesn't make thematic sense for a couple of the characters like Black Cat and Moon Knight. Why do they have wall crawl ability? But nevertheless, it's a cool ability. It makes this game even more combo-rific, as if it wasn't already with some of the new expansion cards from the other expansions. The capability to put a card on top of your deck, combined with some of the other cards in this set that say when a card is put on your deck, something beneficial happens, like the ultimate Scarlet Spider card, which is just a totally broken combo. It's just really cool, and it's a lot of fun, and it does make a bit of thematic sense. I guess. I guess because the characters can climb on the walls, some of them that they can drop on you and surprise you, whatever. But it's cool, and it's a neat little mechanic. Some of the other new things in the game, there's a lot more. It kind of ties in with the original Spider-Man from the core set, which is to say that a lot of looking at the top card of your deck and a lot of stuff with the top of your deck, and it works a lot better here. Moon Knight has a couple of questionable cards that only rely on the rooftops. It's just such a conditional thing. Black Cat has one that relies on the bank. I don't know. Cards like that, very conditional. But I appreciate that they're thinking outside of the box and trying to do new things. I just don't know how thematic or how useful it is. But still, I like what's here. I wish some of the characters had been different, and you know, it's just some of the stuff doesn't make a lot of thematic sense. But even so, for a deck builder, compared to that other notorious deck builder, this is much, much more thematic. It just enhances what I already like about the game. Much like I was talking about how the newest expansion for Sentinels exaggerated the problems of that game, I think that this expansion exaggerates what's so fun about Legendary. It doesn't fix any of its problems. The setup time, the takedown time, the semi-co-op thing is still there, and there are still cards in this set, including a couple that I can think of from Black Cat, who are only in there to screw over the other players. That's their main ability, and I just wish they would never have had that semi-co-op aspect to this game. Even so, this is a good expansion. Just more to love about Legendary, and if you already like the game, you should pick it up for sure. My name is Nick, this has been Board Game Brawl, and I'm reminding you to get out there and game every day and every way. Take care.